guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week we're going to talk about the importance of driver's ed. As you guys are aware, I've been building this Eclipse for my daughter who is 15, turning 16 here in June, and we've been going through the process of kind of educating her on rules of the road, using the DMV's informational packets that they provide, the Learner's Permit program, and the whole 9 yards. But I wanted to visit specifically with you guys about driver's ed. I think once upon a time, driver's ed was taken for granted because it was a way for parents to kind of pawn off the chore of teaching their kids to be responsible drivers. Now, in today's world, driver's ed is actually quite expensive. I'm not sure if it's that way nationwide, depending on where you're located. It still may be free or it might be a very nominal fee, but where I live, it costs roughly $900 to $1,000 for the full course, and it is taught through the school district. So what that gives them is access to a car, an instructor, and a computer. And they go through all the DMV stuff. I want to say that the way the course is laid out is that initially it is done in the classroom, right? So they teach you all the things you need to know before you ever get in the driver's seat of a car. Then once you get in that driver's seat, you've got an instructor with you who's instructing, obviously, every step of the process. So, lesson number one might be cruising around the high school parking lot, or driving between cones, or learning to park, or, anything that is a necessary piece of learning how to drive, but isn't necessarily going to put a child on the street in this learning car day one, right? So, again, I think that they can instruct how to parallel park, or not even parallel park, just park in a parking lot, parking space, these kind of things. And then, teaching the kids how to shift gears. Everything is done in an automatic anymore, so there's no real shifting and clutch work, but learning what, 1, 2, drive, neutral, reverse, all those things, park, obviously, learning about the e-brake, learning about the rules of the road from the standpoint of distracted driving, right? All of this stuff is important stuff, but I think where parents struggle, and this is, I'm speaking from experience, is twofold. I think I'm not a teacher. I think first and foremost, it's the level of frustration when you are instructing your kid to do something and they don't do it, or they don't listen, or they don't want to, or whatever. So I think that where a driver's education class is helpful is now all of a sudden your kid is the student and they're working with a professional teacher who hopefully can give them better instruction than maybe you can. I'm also, I don't want to say I have a short temper, but I definitely think that there are some frustrations when, you're trying to teach, and it seems like second nature to you and I, but, to a 15-year-old kid who's sat in the driver's seat of a car one time or whatever, it's not really easy. And so I think that that's where paying a professional course might be beneficial. Now, another benefit of driver's ed is that once that student graduates, there's a discount on the insurance for that kid. So, I think what ends up happening is you might outlay a bunch of money for a driver's education course, but over time, you kind of get that money back in savings on your insurance premiums. So for me, again, I think it's worth it because realistically, my daughter's going to get a professional education when it comes to how to drive a car. I don't have to be yelling at her. I don't have to be, that nagging dad who's saying, slow down, speed up, pull over, do this, that, and the other. I don't want to be that guy. I want to just get in the car and go. And again, while she's learning, it's not that simple. And so I think that that's where, just the peace of mind of her actually listening to an instructor who's going to teach her the ins and the outs and make sure that, she understands right from wrong when you're behind the wheel. That's super important. There are also statistics out there that the school district has provided to us parents that, statistically, the likelihood of an accident, the likelihood of, fender benders are one thing, but like tickets, speeding, running lights, all those things are exponentially lower when a child has been through the driving program, as opposed to, just learning from mom and dad. Now, when I go back in time, I didn't do a driver's ed program. It was offered through my school, and I remember many of my friends taking it, but I didn't. And, my first car was a 1983 Chevy Blazer, an S10. So it was the compact little two-door SUV, and it was a 4-speed manual. Well, I basically taught myself. My dad at the time had a 3000 GT. And it's a Mitsubishi sports car, and it was fun, fast, low, small, all the things. It's kind of the upgraded version of my daughter's Eclipse. Well, it was a 6-speed manual, which was far ahead of its time. It was a 95, I think, a 96, something like that. Well, anyway, I was watching my dad drive. He'd drive me to school in this car most days. And I would watch, shifting. I would listen to the engine. I'd watch the RPM. I was pretty quick, and it seemed very intuitive to me to learn how to shift a car. So anyway, fast forward a couple of years or whatever, and I had my S10 Blazer. I actually taught myself how to drive on some country back roads. Basically, in the meantime, my parents had moved out of town and kind of out into the country. And they lived in an area that was very rural and very, I would say, lightly populated. There were no major roads in their community, very little traffic. Truly, it was, if there was anybody else on the road, it was because they lived out there. And so I could basically drive around and figure it out and learn. And I stalled the crap out of that car so many times, but eventually figured it out, and I learned how to go and stop and shift and do all those things sort of by myself. I don't know. I was pretty self-taught, and that's nothing against my parents at all. That's not at all what I'm implying. They were more than willing to get in the car with me. My dad on more than one occasion did get in the car with me and would roll around and kind of see what I'd learned and how I was doing. But it wasn't a lot of direction. It was mostly just kind of supervising. And I'm not that kind of dad, quite frankly. I feel like I would be the one that's shaking my fist in the air or pointing the finger and saying, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I know myself well enough that I don't think I'll make a great instructor for learning how to drive a car. So I do catch my daughter watching us drive our vehicles. I think she's starting to figure things out. I do think that she knows her way around pretty well. So I don't have a huge amount of concern for her getting lost anymore. We all have cell phones. Back in the day, we did not. Distracted driving was a lot different back when I was learning because the worst distraction outside of like maybe a friend in the car was the radio. And today everything's voice activated or phone activated, and you've got texting and you've got phone calls and you've got all these other things that is very easy to get distracted, but it's also very easy to stay safe because a lot of cars anymore have built-in navigation, have satellite tracking, have Bluetooth, have all these things where, you don't have to be as distracted as a driver to accomplish all that you want to do. You can change the song simply with your voice in a lot of cases. And so the world's gone a lot more high tech, which is probably good, probably for the best. But when you're learning, I think eliminating those distractions and having as clear cut expectation and direction as possible is important. So that's why we are going to use the driver's ed program. It's going to lead right up to her turning 16. She will have enough hours. The DMV requires a student or a kid to have X amount of hours driving experience when they sit for their driver's license now. And this driver's ed program accounts for like 2/3 of those hours. And then she just needs to drive, my wife and I around a little bit just so that we can see what she's learning and all that, and that will account for the balance of those hours. And so in a perfect world, I think it's 100 hours of driving is what's required by the DMV. Maybe a little more or a little less than that, but I mean, in a perfect world, that's a lot of windshield time. I mean, I think about my commute to my office is probably about 4 minutes, 3 minutes maybe. So that's like 15 trips per hour. That's not a lot. You know, I mean, I could go back and forth to work 15 times, and that's 1 hour of driving, and I need 100 of those. I mean, I don't make that many trips to my office in a year. So the long and short of it is just, you know, it's a lot of windshield time, and again, 2/3 of that is covered in driver's ed. So that's all I got for you guys this week. You know, that's an active conversation in my household, so I felt like it was worth having the conversation about with you guys. What are your thoughts? Do you think driver's ed is good or bad, or do you not care? Are you indifferent? Are you teaching your kids how to drive? What's that look like? Are you a good instructor? Would you like to teach my daughter? No, I think paying for driver's ed's fine because we do get that insurance break, so we'll essentially get that money back, and I don't have to be a bossy dad. So I think it's a win-win for us, but I do want to know, you know, what have you done or what are your plans to doing this moving forward? So with that, like, subscribe, comment, share this stuff, but most importantly, remember, may every investment you make be a good one. Till next time.